Good evening. From the starting point of objectivity, many newspapers have strayed into different political leanings. Where lies the balance, and is it possible to toe a middle line? My guest tonight is the editor of a tri-weekly newspaper. Mr. Ben Ephson, welcome to the program.
Thank you, David.
Ben, many people accuse the media of not being objective. What is objectivity?
Sticking to principles and issues, that's all.
It is sticking
to principles and issues.
Sticking to principles and issues.
Once you do that, you can't go wrong.
Can you explain that a bit further?
I'll give you an example. When ex-President Rawlings handed over in 1979, and he was being hounded by the security agencies, I took on the Liman administration that those acts were against his human rights. They were sent for Captain Chikata. And that they had committed any offense, they should be taken to court. Now, when President Rawlings came to the second time in 1981, and he was abusing people's human rights, and I took him on, I had trouble. So once the issue is the abuse of human rights, I don't care which human being rights are being abused. Once you go for that principle, you don't have to look at the personality.
So you don't care who you're talking to, who you're talking about. You just talk about the issue.
That's it. You see, if you
have you no views of your own?
I have views, but you have to put them aside. Because if you support Rawlings, once he starts torturing people, oh, Rawlings is doing so here. But no, once you do the issues, I don't care.
This is not the sort of approach that many newspapers have these days. Not just newspapers, for that matter. The media, radio, television, I guess. This is not the approach. Why? Why are you different in that sense? Why do you think that you approach it this way?
I think that when I started working in this field 26 years ago, I started with the foreign media. Now, working for the foreign media, you are working for somebody in Afghanistan.
They taught you certain ways of doing things.
Yes, you have to. You have to, otherwise you lose credibility. You're writing for somebody in Afghanistan, Peru, South Africa, who wasn't of Ghana before.
And how does that impact? What is that? What do you mean? Why that example? What do you mean?
I mean, I got used to looking at issues, not personalities. Because the person in Afghanistan doesn't care who Rawlings is, who Liman is. So you write about what they are doing. For the man anywhere in the world, human rights is an issue. Detention without trial is an issue. Hunger, poverty, they are all issues.
But so the question here is that perhaps we focus too much on people. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's it. So
but people are the ones that run government. People are the ones that do things. How can you do journalism and not talk about people?
You see, if the person dies, does governance stop? They don't. That's the issue. When the principles and issues are there, human beings will come to be a face. Kufuor was in the position for 29 years, not the president. He didn't start the struggle 29 years ago. So once you deal with issues and principles, the human beings only come to enforce it, and they will move on.
But there are people that say you are not interesting. You pursue all this objectivity. You are neutral. You don't take any sides. Are you neutral?
I'm neutral. And let me tell you, there's some people who find me interesting because I'm neutral. That's it. You can't please everybody all the time. But what is the hard way?
But what is objectivity? I mean, there is a definition that objectivity doesn't mean that you mustn't have it, or means that you have no views. You can't be on both sides. You're a newspaper editor.
Yes.
You must have a position.
I have a position.
What is your position?
Let me give you an example. Left myself alone, Ghana was not play football internationally for 5 years because we spent too much money on it. We've achieved nothing, and that the money should be spent on lesser known sports.
Do you pursue that in your writing?
I don't, because I realize that I write about it in editorial sense. So I realize that no government will be bold enough to say that, look, let's put football aside for 2 years to get our house in order and spend money on volleyball, hockey, and boxing.
But if that is your position,
yes,
then I'm suggesting that as you have a responsibility to articulate that position.
I do that position, but you realize that it's like pouring water on dog's back. You understand that? I mean, people in power realize that, look, people love their football. So how can I stir the honestness?
So they do what people like.
Yes, but my position, and I've done editorials on it. I mean, Black Stars go and play a football match in Sierra Leone. They draw, lose out qualifying for the World Cup, and we give them $1,000 bonus. Are we serious? And volleyball, people go for camping, and they can't even get 10,000 for their food and footwear. What are we talking about?
they can't talk about it.
I talk about it, but
yes.
I realize that the politicians are not bold enough.
But isn't that the same thing with the media, the large portion of the media, that they don't talk about a whole range of things simply because if people are interested in politics, then give the people what they want. That's what is happening.
Yeah, you see, but there's a different type of politics. Some of us would like to, the advent of radio stations makes you realize that if you're going to talk about politics, take sides, your people won't survive. You might be able to do things that people want to see different.
How do you survive?
Yes, until you get a dispatch, you never know the stand of the paper, or never know the issue. There are certain papers, before you buy the paper, you know what they're going to write.
But that is what the people want.
Yeah, but for that, we've survived because there are people who want to say that, look, if I pick this paper, I'll be able to see what is wrong with either NDC or MPP. That's how we survived.
Why do you think there is such a big emphasis on just political issues? It's amazing. For years, I would have thought we would have shifted by now. This country has a lot of other issues to look at. Why isn't it again just the whole commercial thing because politics sells?
You see, after the next 3-4 elections, you see the politics will make the front page again.
Why?
You see, Ghanaians are now going through the process of changing people by a ballot box. Left myself alone, I would wish that after every 4 years we change governments to the ballot box.
Why?
You see, what is going on now with regard to the NDC ex-ministers and so on? People in the MPP, ministers, are taking a cue. That look, people stamp the second AK-47 that they can change you to the ballot box. When you're out of power, what you are doing to them, Ephson's investigation to happen to you. So Ghanaians is like a newfound way of expressing themselves.
So that's why you're getting all this politics, but you're saying it will change?
It will change. I mean, I'm sure after 2004, 2008, the headlines will not be they'll be fatigued.
Mr. Ephson, the newspapers and the radio and television, I guess, I mean, the media is also under a certain amount of criticism from a lot of people. There are people that suggest that, especially the private newspapers and so on, that you are tyrannical. This is now oppression from the media. What is your response to that?
You see, I would prefer oppression from the media than oppression from government. You can't fight a government.
You prefer to substitute one form of oppression for another?
I'll tell you why. If the media